Hello, and you are listening to episode 67 of Lifestyle Locker Radio with Dr. Christina Bjorndal.
But I was sick and tired of being tired and sick. And again, wearing that mask all the time that, you know what, I'm okay on the outside, but really I'm not. So I sat with the question, if money didn't matter, what would I be doing?
Hi, I'm Dr. Josh Hand, and welcome to the Lifestyle Locker Radio, where we dive into what makes an awesome lifestyle. From relationships to money mindset, nutrition to fitness, emotional health to peak performance, we bring you on an amazing journey to unleashing your human potential. So our guest today is Dr. Christina Bjorndal, graduated from UBC in 1990 with a bachelor's degree of commerce with honors. She was a valedictorian of her graduating class. She completed her doctorate in naturopathic medicine from the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine in 2005. She is one of the only licensed naturopathic doctors in Canada who is considered an authority in the treatment of mental illness such as depression, anxiety, bipolar disorders, and eating disorders. A gifted speaker and writer, she has shared her personal story and philosophy of wellness with audiences across North America. Dr. Chris has helped many patients navigate through labels and stigma towards physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Having overcome many challenges in the sphere of mental health, Dr. Chris is especially exceptional about sharing her motivational speeches about how she has overcome barriers in her life and to encourage others to achieve their full potential. We love that here at Lifestyle Locker, right? We want people to unleash their human potential. She also loves her work and balances it with a full, active lifestyle with her husband and son. She has completed 3 books on mental health, as well as a 10-week course and in-person retreat on mental health. Her 3 books. Here we go. You ready? The first one, or the newest one, I believe, Beyond the Label. 10 steps to improve your mental health with naturopathic medicine. Moving Beyond, a journal into self-discovery. And the third, The Essential Diet, eating for mental health. A portion of all proceeds from the books goes towards mental health scholarship at the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine. How awesome is that? Not only is she an expert in the field, but she gives back to the community that has helped her get where she has. So we just want to share that also. Gratitude is awesome. So without further ado, Dr. Chris. Hey everybody, in the locker room today we have Dr. Chris. She is an author. She's a wild child in the healthcare world and really cool. You're going to learn a lot about her today, and I'm excited because after getting her emails and signing up for her e-newsletter from her practice in Canada, it is really cool, and you're going to totally vibe with her. So welcome, Dr. Chris.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
It's very great to be here. So I like to start everybody off everybody to start to hear your story, just your journey to what brought you to where we are today, as far as an author, a doctor, a naturopathic doctor as well. So let's hear some.
Yeah. So basically my story starts in university for the most part. And that's when I first struggled with my mental health. And I had an eating disorder, and I stumbled into depression and anxiety. And a lot of this was really due to the pressure I put on myself as a overachiever and a type A person. And I basically crashed. And this is in the mid 80s. And at that time, there was no conversation going on around adrenal dysfunction, adrenal fatigue. Looking back now with the knowledge that I have, I think that that's what was going on for me. But I was weaved into the medical system where I was then put on psychotropic medications to deal with the depression and anxiety. And within a few months after starting the medication, I then had a week of little to no sleep. And I ended up having a full-blown delusional psychotic episode, which really caught everybody off guard. including myself,
I bet.
and my
Wow.
yeah, and my mom in particular, because I'm adopted, I will mention as well. So we didn't have the family history, and so nobody, my mom didn't have experience with this. So, anyways, I got labeled with bipolar disorder type 1. And then for the next decade, I pretty much just continued that overachieving behavior, but was stuck in depression and anxiety for most of that time, but very high functioning. So I would wear the mask every day when I went to work, that everything's okay on the outside, but meanwhile, I'm really struggling on the inside. And it was a suicide attempt in 1994 that left me in a coma with kidney failure on dialysis, waiting for a kidney transplant, where I really hit the bottom. And a friend gave me a book to read by Marianne Williamson called A Return to Love. And in that book, there's a quote about surrender. And I really, I realized that I did not love myself. I didn't like myself. I was really at war with myself in my head most of the time. So that began the slow unfolding of my journey to wellness. And I ended up after a few years. So I went to see a naturopathic doctor, and then I went to see an orthomolecular doctor named Dr. Abram Hoffer, who is considered the father of orthomolecular medicine here in Canada.
Okay. I want to have you talk about that in a minute when you're done.
Yes. And so he was in his 80s at that time. And I started his protocol, and I was still taking 4 psychotropic medications at that time. But I finally had a year of reprieve from the depression and anxiety, which I hadn't had for that whole decade. And meanwhile, I've worked my way up the corporate ladder, reporting now to a CEO, have a high profile job. But I was sick and tired of being tired and sick. And again, wearing that mask all the time, that, you know what, I'm okay on the outside, but really I'm not. So I sat with the question, if money didn't matter, what would I be doing? And the answer that came to me was to go back to school. I had to go back to high school, the age of 33, to do the science prerequisites, because I didn't do that the first time around. And go back to school and become an orthomolecular or naturopathic physician and help people regain their mental health as you have. So that's the journey in a nutshell. So I have written a book called Beyond the Label, 10 Steps to Improve Your Mental Health with Naturopathic Medicine, which talks about all the steps that I've taken and how I feel that you can. I just learned the term not too long ago. You're probably going to laugh that I'm a little bit of a latecomer to this biohacking concept, but I went to Dave Asprey's conference and I realized, maybe I've biohacked bipolar disorder and depression and anxiety and bulimia and all of it. But
you may have,
time will tell.
I interviewed Ben Greenfield, and we talked about like biohacking being a crazy word, but when it's really just figuring out how to do things in a, I guess it's, I don't want to say against the grain, but against what the societal norms are, and actually getting amazing results, but letting the body do what it's designed to do even a little better.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So I want to just kind of bounce back, because that's a pretty amazing story to have that kind of, awakening, like recovery, like, holy cow, suicide attempt to now, I mean, based on what I've been looking at and reading about you and starting your book, it's, you've come like 180 degrees and 200 miles an hour in the right direction.
Yeah.
Right. And you mentioned orthomolecular medicine. See, that's a term that I'm not very familiar with. And I'm sure a lot of listeners may not. We've heard of naturopathic medicine and functional medicine and other different things, but orthomolecular medicine is a new one for me. So can you kind of talk about it a little bit?
I can. You know what it is really is, I think it's functional medicine is the spin on orthomolecular medicine. But orthomolecular medicine is a term. So orthomolecular is a term coined by Linus Pauling. So he won 2 Nobel Prizes in his time on the planet, which I think is remarkable. And basically it just means finding the right molecule to support your individual needs. And so it's nutrition based. And he felt that every illness comes down to a nutritional deficiency. So it's really using the right nutrients to support your individual biochemistry. That's what the term means.
Okay.
Some people have the misconception about orthomolecular therapy that it means high doses of vitamins, and that's not actually what it means. But I think the modern term is functional medicine in a way.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it's kind of been like a change in an evolution, maybe, or
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So in your journey in regaining your health and regaining your life, you used orthomolecular medicine and naturopathic medicine. Can you kind of dive in a little bit, like get a little bit deeper? Like, I don't need to know like the dose of this or dose of that.
Oh, no.
What kind of things were you doing? Because I'm sure it wasn't just taking nutrition, supplements or food. There was headspace. There was all sorts of things that probably had to come into play.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I explain is that the nutrition piece is really, really important. So basically, there's 4 aspects to all of us as people. We have the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects. And our Western medical system is focused primarily on that physical piece, which is you either take a pharmaceutical or you can take a nutraceutical or a botanical remedy or something on that physical level. And that's where I started with the nutrients with which Dr. Hoffer prescribed, as well as what my naturopathic doctor prescribed. But then, and that got me so far, but then you end up bumping up against your emotions and your thoughts. And so basically what I explain to people is there's 10 steps. So the foundation is diet. So before I go into that, on the physical level, you want to understand there's 3 macro systems within us. You've got your neurotransmitters, your neuroendocrine or hormonal system, and then your organs of detoxification. And all these things are working together. It's not like there's silos in your body and there's separate compartments. They're all interacting. Hormones affect neurotransmitters and vice versa. So I think from a root cause medicine, it's really important to, on the physical level, to figure out, well, what's the root that we need to address? And maybe it's all 3 systems. And this is what happened to me is I started Dr. Hoffer's protocol. And for the first 2 weeks of the month, I actually felt really good. But the last 2 weeks of my cycle, watch out, right?
Yeah.
So that shows you that not only was a neurotransmitter problem, but there was also hormone imbalances. So eventually I had to take a look at these other pieces, which are on the mental, emotional, spiritual level. So looking at my thoughts, how I behave and react in the world, learning to respond versus react, boundaries, my emotions, spirituality, and ultimately wrapping everything up in love and compassion for myself, not only for myself, but for everyone. Because I think it fundamentally comes down to this relationship you're having with yourself. And for mental illness, a lot of people are at war with themselves. So I ended up being guided to another naturopathic doctor who really taught me how to work with my mind and manage my mind. And his name's Dr. Jason Hughes. And I love him dearly and think he's just an amazing clinician as well. So yeah.
When you were in the physical world, when you were looking at these 3 macro systems, were you doing blood work? Were you doing things to kind of measure and track what changes you had?
So Dr. Hoffer didn't actually do much blood work, but my naturopathic doctor, we did food intolerance testing and I had leaky gut. We did actually an interesting side note on that on the physical level is prior to all my mental health challenges starting, I did a year of antibiotics for acne.
Yeah.
So I didn't make that connection with the gut and the brain until I was at a conference in 2012, I think it was. And one of the lecturers was talking and a light bulb went off and I'm like, oh my gosh. So that really highlights the importance of taking the case,
Yeah. It's funny, you say take the word antibiotic to me is a very interesting word that biotic or biology is life. And antibiotic is anti-life, and this is something we're given. It's like, does this make sense? We kill our gut, and then it wreaks havoc on the whole body. Yeah, it's wild.
Well, and I think Chris Kresler? I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, but he was saying that we think we're here to do all these great things, but really we're just here as vectors to carry these bugs around. They were here before us, and they'll be here after us. And so yeah, no, I agree with you. At the time that was the thinking and that was the treatment. And so it's an interesting connection though, for people to understand there is a huge relationship between your gut and your brain.
Yeah.
So
this is
yeah.
wild. So you mentioned the bugs. I think this is just cool. We're going to kind of bounce around if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I think this is
fine.
really cool. So another person we interviewed named Evan Hirsch, a medical doctor, he said we're 90% bugs, 10% us. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, you think about this when you talk about like the gut and the body. It's like, okay, now it's pretty wild.
It is, and it's kind of, it's a little bit gross when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
I say to people, you got more bacteria in and on you than you have cells in your body. There's 3 pounds alone in your digestive tract.
Yeah.
So, who is really running the ship up here? Is it you or is it the bugs, right? So
exactly.
Yeah. So, and I think what people have to understand is when you do take an antibiotic, and again, I'm not completely anti pharmaceuticals. I say to people, look, Western medicine saved my life, but naturopathic, so I'm alive because of Western medicine today, but I thrive because of naturopathic medicine.
Great for emergencies.
Yeah.
Not for thriving.
And I think it's not this or that, it's this and that.
Yeah.
The two systems need to work together. So, but it's, when you take an antibiotic, what tends to come back first is opportunistic pathogens. And in the naturopathic and functional medicine world, we look at things like Candida, which is an opportunistic pathogen. It's not, it can cause a whole host of symptoms and problems in people. So restoring that bacteria and that the good flora is really important. And you can use food, but what people have to understand is with food, you have to be careful how it's manufactured. So if, for example, sauerkraut, if it's been heat pressurized, then you're going to lose some of that. You're going to kill some of that good bacteria. And same with yogurt. A lot of people talk about yogurt. If you're eating, your yogurt has to be natural. It cannot have any sugar or flavoring or artificial, sugar-free, any of that, any chemical that you put in is going to then destroy the bacteria. So, and I think when we talk about food too, it's important to understand that sometimes it's pretty tough to get medicinal doses from, for example, vitamin C. You may need 2 grams of vitamin C per day. There's only 80 milligrams in an orange.
Yeah.
So, you're going to have to eat at least 20 oranges to, if I'm doing the math right. Yeah.
Right. You'd be hanging out in the bathroom all day.
Yeah. That's right. So anyways, so I'll just say that and a little segue into that. So that's one of the books I've written is called The Essential Diet, Eating for Mental Health. Because I think, because I've had an eating disorder, I really feel that there's a lot of confusion around diet. And I think people have to understand that the food industry, first of all, that's the key word, is it's an industry.
Yes.
They want you to be addicted to their products, and they do so by manipulating 3 molecules, fat, sugar, and salt, to find what they refer to as the bliss point. And so we're all lab rats to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But the reason it is scary, and the reason why I created the Essential Diet is because I want these essential nutrients. You need to be getting them. And I was not getting them. I had been a vegetarian and an overachieving athlete. And I had 3 nutritional deficiencies that nobody, I shouldn't say nobody, it went undiagnosed for a while. And when I went to medical school, we had to analyze our diets for nutrition. And the only essential amino acid I was deficient in was tryptophan. And that is the one that goes to make serotonin. So for me, it was jaw-dropping that not one doctor had ever really asked me what I was eating. Now, the reason I got better on Dr. Hoffer's protocol was because he put in all the nutritional building blocks to get me to serotonin, but never actually looking at what I was ingesting. So from a root cause, if we don't want to be prescribing 50 million supplements or pharmaceuticals, we really have to take a look at the diet, right?
Yeah, and the quality of that diet as well. I don't remember the number, but for somebody I read or heard, if like you just look at the nutrition or the nutrients in an apple, like how many inorganic apples have to equal the nutrients of one, but with also the downside of whatever genetically modified garbage may be on it.
Exactly. I mean, our food, exactly. There's the genetic modification of food, and then there's the dirty, like the spraying, the
Yeah.
pesticides. When we get into wheat, there's things like the hybridization, and there's just so much. It's just been so adulterated now.
Yeah.
So I remember in medical school we had a debate on GMO foods, and at that time the debate was about should it be labeled. And here we are, gosh, almost 20 years later, 16 to 20 years later, still no labeling.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
It's scary what
Yeah.
industry and money can do. All in the sake of the world. Forget just the North America where we are. I mean, the world. I
Yeah.
mean, there are so many countries that won't allow it. They won't allow the production of it. They won't allow
Yeah.
the selling of it. And if it's around, they have to be labeled.
That's right.
And it's scary.
I know.
In the U.S., it blows my mind. Absolutely
I
blows my
know.
mind.
Well, I think Europe is it true that I think Europe won't accept grain from North America?
Probably. I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah.
But yeah.
So then let's look, because we're kind of going like really wide here. We talk about like the physical realm, a little bit about like the mental realm, but let's kind of jump into the mental realm a little bit, because
Sure.
I imagine when you were eating and changing your whole biochemistry of your body by changing what you were eating from the orthomolecular and the naturopathic medicine, that alone probably had to change a little bit of your mindset mentality, just because your brain was probably working better before you even had to jump into the mental world.
Yeah, I think probably you're right with that. But I think so. Here's the thing. So for myself, whenever somebody said to me, just snap out of it, or you don't have anything to be depressed about, or change your thoughts, change your life, I probably would have rolled my eyes at you and walked out of the room, especially with that last statement, change your thoughts, change your life. And I think the reason for me was because I felt like you were implying that I was willfully choosing to be depressed. And, I wasn't. And so, but now I realize through the work of Dr. Candace Pert and her book, Molecules of Emotion, and the field of psychoneuroimmunology, that if you want to change how you feel and the cascade of hormones that get produced, your thoughts play a role. And so what I teach patients is a process that I learned from Dr. Jason Hughes. I've called it the 7 R's of working with problematic thoughts. When he started off with the 4 R's. So, because I'm a type A, I had to, improve on it. So, but I want to, give homage to him because this is where it came from. So basically, when we're working with our mind, what we have to recognize, the first R is recognize. You have to pay some attention to what's going on up here, because we all have our conscious mind, but we also have a subconscious mind. And these two are at play in terms of the thoughts that are produced in the mind. So the first R is recognizing. And then the next R is once you recognize, if you're stuck in problematic thinking, which I have been for many, many years, 25 years I've been working on this. Well, I learned this from Dr. Hughes. It's only been in the last decade, but other people tried to help me work on my thoughts prior to that, but I was just really resistant. I wasn't open-minded in that regard. But anyways, once I was able to take a look at the thoughts, and realize that these are not healthy thoughts, then the next step is to refrain from following them by relaxing into the breath and this is basically meditation, but because I work with people from so many different backgrounds, and some people are familiar with meditation, other people are scared of the word, I just call it breathing. And what I explain to people is that most of us live right here from the neck up, and we're discounting our bodies completely. And most of us are just breathing with the top little bits of our lungs, but our lungs go all the way down to the end of our rib cage, and our diaphragm pulls across. It goes across. And if you take a deep inhalation, engaging that diaphragm, what's sitting right underneath it on top of our kidneys is our adrenal glands, which are responding with chemicals, hormones, when we have negative thoughts. And so we're kind of stuck in a rut. I call it the thought emotion cycle rut, because we want to feel differently, but yet we're thinking thoughts that are keeping our biochemistry stuck in a negative thinking pattern. Is that making sense?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. So then so the way to freedom through this is either paying attention to the emotions that rise within you and just sticking with the breath with no thought, or paying attention to the thoughts that you're thinking and learning to manage the mind. So I say to patients, listen, you are not at the mercy of your mind. You can learn to manage this. So it's not that suicidal thoughts never come to me. They still come, because I think the wound in me is so deep. This goes back to being in utero, really. So remember, I said I was adopted. So there's some research, and I start my book off with this discussion around the research around the maternal environment when the fetus is developing in utero. The chemical environment and the state that mother is in affects that fetus.
No, 100%.
Right? And I don't mean to say this to make anybody feel guilty if they weren't in the healthiest position when they were pregnant. But here's the thing. There's this other concept called soul contracts. Have you heard of that idea?
If you describe it, I may have, but the name doesn't sound familiar.
Okay, it's a little bit out there, but I'll mention it.
I like woo. It's all right.
Okay, I'll mention it. So again, this is when I was recovering from that suicide attempt, and I've had a few suicide attempts, but finally it dawned on me, okay, you know what? I'm good at everything else for the most part. Why do I suck at this particular thing? And I think you got to make light of it. At this point, you got to joke. For me, I think I have to joke about it. But one of the reasons is this idea of soul contract. So what it is basically the idea that before we inhabit the body as a soul, we make a contract of what we want to learn in this lifetime. It could be that we want to learn forgiveness on a really deep level, or we want to learn compassion on a deep level. So we may have to endure some pretty difficult things depending on what we contract. This idea has helped me in those times when I have been flooded with suicidal thoughts. And this simple belief that perhaps my soul has not come here to succumb to suicide in this lifetime. I've tried really hard and it's not worked. And so maybe for me, this belief that I have come here to learn to love and accept myself in this lifetime and help teach others how to love and accept themselves is the journey for me. And so if you want to learn more about that, it's really beautifully illustrated in a children's book called Little Soul in the Sun by Neil Donald Walsh. But I read about it in A Radical Forgiveness by Colin Tipping. So, and I talk about it in Beyond the Label, the book that I've written as well, this idea of soul contracts. So it's really helped me in subsequent years when suicidal thoughts come to just accept that I need to love myself. That's what a suicidal thought is, really the ultimate in not loving yourself, right?
Yeah,
that
makes sense.
Really what it is. So I also just use the 7 R's that I was mentioning, that I just look at that thought like, wow, that is a really negative, deep, dark thought. And I just get curious. I'm like, wow, like, where did that come from? But I don't attach to it anymore. I used to, right? I used to attach to it, create a plan and execute that plan. Now I'm like, wow, how can we turn that around? Stay with the breath, get out of your head right now. And I want to be clear, I'm not telling people to suppress their thoughts. I'm just saying you don't need to attach to it, and you can just get curious about it. And you let it go. Because surely, you know what, another thought is going to follow, which leads me to the next R and the 7R process. The 5th R is to resolve. 4th R is to resolve that you have to repeat this process. This is not something you can do one time only. Right?
Not a one and done thing.
Not a one and done.
In life.
If you want a 6-pack, you can't do one sit-up. right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Got to repeat the process.
Exactly.
And then the next R is to rephrase or reaffirm. So whatever that crappy thought was you had, see if you can turn it around. Now, this is really hard for me. For me to go from I hate myself to I love myself, forget it. Like, that was not happening. But I say to people, listen, let's just go neutral. Instead of saying I am the worst or I am the best, just say I am. And leave it with no descriptive, nothing. Just stay neutral. And then that shifts your physiology so that eventually you can then move to this loving yourself piece of the puzzle. And then the last R is really what my husband added. He's like, well, you got to reward yourself. You're going to do all that. You got to go have a beer, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Do something good. I agree.
Do something good. But, all joking aside, really, that speaks to compassion, right? Rewarding yourself, being kind to yourself, pat yourself on the back, schedule a massage,
Hey, listen, we only have one life that we know of, right? At this
That's
point.
right.
So
That's right.
reward yourself when you're doing good for yourself. I agree 100%.
Yeah. So there you go. That's the 7 R's in terms of how to manage your thoughts.
That's really neat. And there's someone that, and I've really become really involved. I love mindset. I think it's probably one of the biggest things in the world right now, forever, that helps evolve us to move us forward, like quantum physics and quantum theory and all these wild things that, even 10 years ago, we'll say people thought like, what the hell is this garbage? Like The Secret or this or that, all these different things. But I've taken courses with Dr. Joe Dispenza.
I was going to say, breaking the habit of being yourself.
Yeah, and I mean, some of the experiences I had just in his course is unbelievable.
Yeah,
where you can go, and my transformation, I think it was in October, was like, I did 100, like I didn't say I did 180 degrees, but man, I pivoted hard. Nice. To making sure that was part of my daily ritual. Whether it was 5 minutes or an hour, I made sure I had to do, a meditation, a mindfulness project, something every single day. And it's made such a huge change.
Oh, I love Joe Dispenza.
Yeah.
So that book I mentioned of his, for me, was really, really important. And for people, if they want to look that book up, one of the things he talks about with this quantum physics, and that's a little bit, over my head, but the what I get from quantum physics is by visualizing yourself, say you want a specific job, so you need to visualize yourself already having that job.
What does it feel like? What does it look like?
What does it feel like? What are you wearing on the first day? Who are you talking to? Just everything about it is that was really powerful. It's really powerful. His work is really powerful.
It is. It's very, it's cool. I highly encourage meditation, period, because mindfulness and getting in to get out of your head, if that makes sense, is so powerful.
Well, and I think what people have to understand too is the mind's a really busy place. It's a busy place, a lot of activity going on. And so again, the idea with meditation, it's not, a lot of people have a hard time with it. But what I encourage you, if you're someone who struggles with meditation, just focus your attention on something in nature if you can. So look at a tree or follow a cloud in the sky. And we're not asking you, or I'm not asking you anyways, to sit for 4 hours on some mountaintop. I'm just asking for 3 conscious deep breaths. And here's the reason as well. There's 2 branches to your nervous system, right? Sympathetic and parasympathetic. And certain functions in the body require you to be in a parasympathetic state. And so this is why the breathing is so important, because digestion is one of them.
Rest and digest. Love it.
Yeah, right. And so if people are, eating organic foods and GMO-free foods, but they're stressed out while they're doing it, not much point.
Yeah.
Right? You're not getting the full benefit from the nutrition. So there's why I think that physiology piece, I mean, think about it. When was the last time you saw a stressed out Buddhist monk running around town?
Yeah. Right, exactly.
You just don't see it.
Yeah. So you mentioned nature, and I want you to kind of do me a favor. I mean, your practice or your clinic is called Natural Terrain.
Yeah.
Of all things, which I think is so neat. So can you talk to us, just give us a little bit about like how do people find you, and not necessarily like your website, but how are people searching for you? Is it because of stuff in between our ears? Is it for nutrition? Is it for like, what are people doing to find you?
Most of my patients come from referrals. And so it's that's primarily, and then I'm out there in the community. I speak and I do, a podcast, and I've written books, and so it's mostly word of mouth. The name Natural Terrain is, my husband's also a naturopathic doctor, so he started the practice 2 years. He graduated 2 years ahead of me, and so he used to be a placer miner, diamond driller. So for him, and he's First Nation as well. So for him, it's all about the environment and the terrain, of your body. And if you don't have the right terrain, then you're not going to be able to foster the right chemicals that you need to make from a hormone neurotransmitter perspective, right? And then this whole concept, I think it was Louis Pasteur, I think on his deathbed said, it's not, we've got it wrong. It's not about the bug, it's about the terrain, right?
Yeah.
So the environment, the soil, so to speak, of the body, right?
Yeah.
So, and he's a big time gardener. So we have a greenhouse in our backyard. I mean, we grow pretty much, we grow pretty much 90% of our food in the summertime.
That's so cool.
Yeah. All him. I'm getting there, right? I love eating.
Hey, listen.
I enjoy the fruits of the labor, but
yeah. So let's go here, because I think, we've covered so much, and the content is phenomenal. I can't wait to actually re-listen to this, because I've taken some notes, but I don't think I took enough for myself. So if we have, for our listeners, we're going to give them a gift. We'll mention that at the end, but I want to go over, if you can give 3 gold bars, like 3 solid things someone can do starting today, to be proactive with their lifestyle. Because I love what you put, and hold on, give me 1 second to look. I love that you want people to achieve their full potential. I mean, my slogan for Lifestyle Locker is unleashing your human potential. And that's like that full potential, which I totally vibe with you in that way. What could they do? Give us 3 really solid things. Okay.
So I'm going to just start with the foundational 4 pieces. Which is diet, sleep, exercise, and managing stress. So we'll just start with that foundation with the diet. So there's, again, a lot of people think, how you feel in your body, but here's the thing, you don't know how good you can feel. A lot of people think, I feel pretty good, but is that your full potential? Is that your full potential? So, I mean, I'm 51 and I feel probably better now than I felt when I was at 20. So, and I don't believe in this concept of aging. That's another mindset that people need to shift, right? So from that diet perspective, I would say and I approach diet differently than a lot of clinicians. I don't look at necessarily all the things you need to take out of your diet, because when I went to see a naturopath the first time, I had to cut out wheat, dairy, sugar, eggs, tomatoes. Listen, I didn't know how to cook. So for me, I was like, what's left to eat here? Right. So I don't do that as much. I focus on introducing the good foods. So I would suggest that people start eating tryptophan forming foods. This is if you're struggling with your mental health, looking at increasing water, because a lot of people are not drinking enough water. So just get some of these basic nutritional pieces in place. And then ensuring bowel function is really important, because if you're not having a regular bowel movement, and most people aren't, you can do a beet test. So eat 3 large beets, and then pay attention to how long that takes to show up in your stool. And if it's taking more than 18 hours, then you have a sluggish bowel, and that contributes to inflammation and leaky gut in the body, which then contributes to this brain on fire concept and can be another key component in mental health. So that's one thing. The next area is sleep. Sleep, most people are sleep deprived. They're on their phones. So I would really encourage people to unplug 2 hours before bed. Here's the thing. Your adrenal glands, which we touched on, your adrenal glands need rhythm and routine. And also, every hour of sleep before midnight is worth more than an hour to your adrenal glands.
I've heard that a couple times now.
Yeah. And also, the whole, with Chinese medicine as well, the sleep, it's just really important to do what you can to get to sleep before midnight. I mean, I go to bed early. The other thing is, if there's someone listening to this who does have bipolar disorder, type 1, there's 2 types, type 1 and type 2. Sleep is fundamental to preventing mania. You have to protect your sleep. So the first thing that I've been noticing in the last 10 years is this technology piece. It's really gotten out of control. Your phones should not be in your room. Wi-Fi, your phone does not need to be in your room, and put it on airplane mode, or buy an $8 alarm clock that runs on a battery if you really need to have a clock in your room. We just don't need these things. So really protecting your sleep as much as you can. So that's the second step. And then the third step is exercise. It's been said that the most overutilized prescription for depression and anxiety are pharmaceuticals, and the most underutilized is exercise. Now, listen, I can tell you this. I mean, I get it. I've been there. There's been days when the only thing I've accomplished is moving from my bed to the door, getting dressed to the door. And sometimes that process has taken me 8, 10, 12 hours. And then I go outside and I do, no, my throat's getting dry, sorry, doing my exercise. But I can tell you this. Never once did I come back feeling worse than when I left. So exercise is, and I know this is really difficult if you're a 10 out of 10 depressed, but this is where the support is really important from the family, from your friends. This is where, asking a depressed person to exercise or change their diet is like asking a blind person to see or a deaf person to hear. I mean, we're just physically incapable of caring for ourselves if we're a 10 out of 10 depressed. But if you can enlist your friends or your family member, if you can learn to set up a plan when you're well so that they know the signals to be able to reach out to help you if you slip. Because here's the thing, again, asking a depressed person to reach for help when you're depressed is we're physically not able to do it because we don't want to be here.
As you're saying, get an accountability buddy, whether it's family,
Exactly.
friend, somebody.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I was looking for. Yeah. So then this exercise piece, ideally if you can go for a walk with a friend, because the support, I mean, we're human beings. We need this human interaction and this connection. And so for myself, I tend to be more on the introverted side. So I didn't mind exercising in nature or with my, or if you have a pet. We were talking about our dogs.
Yeah.
Started, before we recorded. So pets. So anyway, exercise, it builds over time, and I credit tennis to regaining my mental health, getting myself out of a depression that I had in 2008-9. I slipped into depression at that time. This is somewhat postpartum as well for me, so I stumbled there, and a friend asked me to play tennis, and so I went. And so here's the thing. I got sunshine, vitamin D, got some movement. I got to take out some of my perhaps stresses on pounding that ball across the net.
Of course.
And I got connection with a friend.
Yeah.
And then what did that do? That stimulated my appetite. Because when I've been depressed, I don't eat. I mean, my pastor at the time, he asked me if I had anorexia because I lose so much weight when I'm depressed because I don't eat. Because why bother? Right? So exercise, anyway, cannot. So those will be my 3 nuggets for you.
Yeah. I know you like exercise.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, but here, I'll just mention this as well, though, just as a little aside. I mean, I could talk to you forever, but here's the thing. With the eating disorder piece, you have to be careful to watch for people who are overcompensating from their poor nutrition with exercise. That's a real thing. And I did that for many years. Yeah. So
agreed.
Anyway.
So diet, we'll start with there. Diet, sleep, and exercise, but review and listen to those 3 pieces again, because everybody, those are so important. Those are like fundamental things, not just basic things. They're very fundamental. And when it comes to exercise, movement is great because it's laser focus. I cannot agree more. Sleep, like you said, a digital detox.
Yeah.
Key.
Yeah.
I've learned this from other interviewees, other guests on the show, that you can, if you have Wi-Fi in your house, you can actually put it on a sleep mode, which I didn't know of, right? I'm like, that's pretty cool. So we can set that up. You can, again, look with your phone, the airplane mode, and we're learning a little bit more about EMF. So that's the future for me to learn more. But I really want to I want to thank you, and I appreciate you so much for being here, Dr. Chris. This has been really, really empowering just to listen to that struggle, to the triumph, to where you are today with your practice and how you're helping people, not only directly as far as, in person, but you're reaching across the planet.
Yeah. Trying to, my mission is really to save souls from suicide. And I heard Dr. James Greenblatt, I spoke with him at a conference, and he said that by the year 2030, a person is going to commit suicide globally, every second.
Holy cow.
Right. So if you think about the length of time we've been on this call,
Yeah.
right, how many lives have been lost? So and again, with the concept of soul contracts that I do believe in, it helps me understand suicide to some extent, but at the same time, I think there's far too many people suffering that need to be.
Yeah.
And I think this approach, this naturopathic approach, it's just not discussed.
Yeah.
When it's just not offered as a solution. And that's partly why I wrote the book, to engage in this conversation and to bring this medicine to light for people who don't even know what naturopathic, what's that? A lot of people don't even know what that, because anyway, but thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so
and
much.
I want you to mention, because the gift you're giving to the audience, to the listeners, is a meditation, is a mindful gift. So can you just give a little description of what you're giving away, and then we'll put all the details in the show notes?
Yes. So in my healing journey, the capacity to forgive has been a big piece of the puzzle for me on this. When I mentioned earlier this concept of spirituality. So to me, spirituality, a piece of spirituality is not only acceptance, but it's also forgiveness. And it's not just about me saying, I forgive you. It's about saying instead, I'm sorry this happened between us. When you say, I forgive you, the other person is still left in the energy of blame and shame. And you're not really understanding this concept of soul contracts that we talked about as well. So for me, forgiveness has been not only of myself, having to forgive myself for some of the things that I have, perhaps like owning what I've brought to the table, but also being able to let go of other transgressions towards me, for example. So it's that I wasn't able to get to that place until the last few years, 5 years of my healing journey. And so I've put together this forgiveness meditation that I read about in a book, in Dr. Christiane Northrup's book, Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, which is a massive Bible. If anybody's attempted to read that, it was a really good book. But for meditation is actually by a man named Stephen Levine. But so I hope you listen to it. I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, it's there for you to download.
Good. Well, fantastic, Dr. Chris. Appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to staying connected.
Absolutely. Take care.
Wow, how awesome was that? I think I need to start a new mantra for myself. Learning is fun. I love to learn. And repeat that over and over again, because with all these podcasts like this with Dr. Chris, the amount of knowledge that we're able to gain in such a short period of time is so powerful. I feel that listening to podcasts, like when I listen to an episode of mine, it's weird to listen to yourself. I want to listen to these and things with David Asprey and Ben Greenfield and things like that. I feel like you can get an actual degree for just listening to a podcast. I mean, you probably get another bachelor's or a master's or whatever from the amount of information you get in these short classes, time and time again. But with Dr. Chris, I hope you really enjoyed that. She is giving away, which you're going to check in the show notes. She is giving away an awesome forgiveness meditation, which she mentioned at the end of the podcast. Check that in the show notes. And there will also be links how to get all of her books on Amazon. Make sure you go ahead and do that. Our interviewees, they don't get paid to be on this show. I ask. So they spend their time and their energy, and they spend a lot of time creating their content, which is helping people around the world. So I do hope that you go ahead and buy her books, share them with people that you find value with. And, if you do find value in the podcast, I would love if you would head over to iTunes and give us an awesome review. That is greatly appreciated. So thank you so much. You know what? Like us on Facebook. We got to start hitting some big numbers on the Facebook and the Facebook, right? That sound old, right? On Facebook, and follow me on Instagram at Dr. Josh Hand. Love to post awesome content, fun content, relevant content. We're not a big corporation. We hope to be a big business. We're not a big corporation yet, so we're posting real stuff. It's mostly me If I find stuff from others that I love, I do share that as well. So have a great day, great morning, great evening. Have a fantastic night. Whenever you listen to this, I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.